If I was to say to you, encapsulate your biggest achievement in office so far, what would that be?
It is the fact that we are bringing stability. Zimbabwe is now open for business. Zimbabwe has introduced foreign policy for engagement and re-engagement. We are desirous now to join the family of nations after 20 years or 2 decades of isolation. And I'm happy that most world capitals are giving us positive signals of acceptance.
Well, can I ask you then, what have the discussions been with the United States of America? They have the strongest sanctions against Zimbabwe.
I'm happy that dialogue with the Trump administration is ongoing. I have met several of his staffers whom he has sent, and at various fora. I have met them, and I'm happy with the progress so far we are making, which has never happened for the last 20 years. So I'm very positive that this dialogue will continue to yield positive results towards the removal of the Zidera sanctions.
Do you think that could happen in 2019, or is that a 2020 event?
I wouldn't put time frame. What is critically important is that we are engaging, and we are receiving positive response from some of them. We still have some members in this administration, some hawks, who are still very hard on Zimbabwe.
What are they asking you to deliver that you need to do?
Well, they are still of the opinion that the land reform which we carried out was not necessary, which we disagree. It was necessary because the land reform is premised on equalizing the situation in the country, where 70% of our land was in the hands of about 6,000 farmers from Britain, and 30% of our land was in the hands of 80 million Zimbabweans. But that is now behind us. We have done our land reform program where 363,000 families have now been settled on land, and we are saying to them the land issue is behind us. In fact, the Americans...
Is it really behind you? Is the land issue really dealt with?
Only to the extent that the parceling out has been done. What is there now, we have a land commission which is auditing how fairly it was distributed, because we come to incidences where some people have more land than is designated in the ecological region of that area, and where persons may have more than one family has more than one farm. It's not allowed. That audit is going on now so that we equalize and make sure there's been total fair distribution of the land.
Can I ask you, one of your biggest supporters was Lord Hayne, and he recently wrote, one of your biggest supporters when you came to power was the British Lord Hayne. And he said, Zimbabwe government as it stands now is betraying every promise that it made to rebuild and renew after the despotism of Mugabe. The risk, sir, is that there is a global perception that you've not moved far enough and aggressively enough to reform. What do you say to those detractors?
The issue is not, we cannot move at the pace of an individual in another country. We are moving at the pace of what is possible in Zimbabwe, the concrete effects on the ground. We must not leave anybody behind. We have institutions in our country. We have a parliament. So all the changes which we have to do, we have to go through all the parliamentary procedures. Some feel that the pace is slow, but we cannot omit any of the requirements as demanded by our constitution or demanded by our domestic or municipal laws in the country. What is critical is that we know where we want to go. We want to liberalize our economy. We are making economic reforms, and we are going to achieve that. Yes, there are some who are saying the pace is slow, but we are telling them that we cannot jump any procedures, because tomorrow it will haunt us again.
Well, they're certainly hounding the currency. That is for sure. And there is a lack of confidence in the Zimbabwean dollar. What do you say to the detractors on the currency who are attacking it?
You realize that for the last 2 decades, our currency collapsed totally. It collapsed as a result of those sanctions. And for us to have been surviving, we then introduced in 2009 a basket of currencies that included the American dollar, the pound, the euro, the rand, and so on. Many currencies came in. But now we realize that it is necessary to introduce a monocurrency.
But they're still attacking that monocurrency.
Yes, you don't expect that everybody will go with you whatever you want to do.
How are you going to defend this currency attack?
We have to make sure that the fundamentals to anchor a currency of any country, it's not only Zimbabwe, it's not peculiar to Zimbabwe, any currency must be anchored on some reserves. As I've told you, our economy had totally collapsed. So we are beginning from the bottom of the trough so that we build reserves and make fundamentals in place which can support a new currency. Anyway, in that process, of course, we have somebody who says, oh, it must be done today. It's not possible. We have to move on step by step so that we succeed.
Well, part of that step-by-step process is information for the global investment community in the form of inflation data. You have inflation ratcheting away. Why has the government stopped releasing inflation results? We need that data to look at the currency, to look at the country.
In the past, it was based on the multi-currency system. But it is necessary that now that we are going back to a new platform, we need a period of about 10 months or so to build statistics on which we can now base. We cannot base the current monocurrency on the basis of a collapsed and the multi-currency system. So that by March next year, the currency will be out. Yes, we are currently building internally. We have people who complain that we still need this to be done, but we feel that it is necessary to be correct and to be solid. So we need to build a basis upon which.
So you're making a commitment today to have inflation data to the market by March of next year?
I'm not making this today. It has been made already before by my Minister of Finance in this year. That has been communicated. Well, there may be people who have not taken on board that information, but it is there.
Okay, let's try and tie 2 things together. We have soaring inflation. The only other country out there, I suppose, in a similar state is Venezuela. Is the economy of Zimbabwe in a similar state to Venezuela?
I'm also sure I understand what is happening in Venezuela.
Well, they're having a fairly tough time, sir.
Pardon?
They're having a tough time.
Well, I don't know how tough, whether their situation is similar to ours, that those who are interested to make comparisons can do so. I am in charge of my country, and I must look at what is necessary to resurrect and grow my economy. In Zimbabwe, with the resources at our disposal, yes, with the constraint of the sanctions that are on us, but we cannot sit back and say, oh, we have sanctions. No. The resources which we have must be exploited. We must create a situation, an environment to attract global capital to come into our economic environment and jurisdiction under the conditions in which we live.
To attract that foreign capital, it is about relationships with your creditors. Talk to Bloomberg about where we are with debt forgiveness with your creditors.
Yes, we are doing everything possible to approach our creditors worldwide, to give them the position which we are, to give us a breathing space, and to assure them that we are committed to honoring our debt. And that is going on.
Have you received any extension?
They don't sit every time. There are specific periods when they sit. That is when we will put our case. We are only about 1 month, 10 months in office. So we are doing our best. And fortunately, I'm happy to say that most of the countries in the G7, we are talking to them. Some are giving us advice as what to do. And I'm happy that this is what is happening.
Who's the most supportive to you?
most of the G7 countries are being very warm to us, unlike in the past where they gave us their back. Today we talk front to front.
Emerson Mnangagwa, President of Zimbabwe, thank you very much for being with Bloomberg today, sir.
Thank you, my brother. Most welcome.